Alrighty, in this video we're going to continue our cleanup. So I think I've decided to go ahead and create a new project for our components. So moving over our login system, character select system, as well as our future actor components, and move that outside of our BuzzMMO.Base. Maybe even our API v1 as well. And the reason for that is at the moment our BuzzMMO.Tools depends on BuzzMMO.Base. I really struggled with whether or not I wanted to either remove that dependency or remove the need for BuzzMMO.Base to have a reference to tools. I decided that BuzzMMO.Base, the purpose of that project should really be just to contain our base infrastructure code, kind of our library code that we use throughout the project, and then we'll have our own separate little BuzzMMO.Base.components or something like that that'll contain our API v1 and our components and our generated code. That'll also let us move all of these classes outside into BuzzMMO.Base directly if you want to do that as well. I'll be doing that because I have ReSharper, which will fix all of my issues with imports and all of that fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question is what do we want to call that project? We could call it BuzzMMO.Components, but then it'll sort after client.unity. Not really like that. We could do BuzzMMO.Base.Components. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I hate adding all these projects, but as long as you can point to a project and make a justification for why it exists, then I suppose that's a good thing. I mean, in all honesty, most of the justifications for the vast majority of these projects is that we have so many different environments that we want to run in. I mean, we want to run in the console, in Unity, then we separate all our base code out into client. We need our data so that we can use that in our server and our web. We need server region, server master, and server for our server code, and then our tests are pretty obvious, and same with our launcher. So this just fixes a nasty dependency issue that I'm not very happy with. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and create a console. What am I doing? I'm creating a code library. Or where are you? I'm not seeing class library. Where are you, class library? I'm just going to search for class library. Class library C#. Okay, and then I'm going to call this BuzzMMO.Base.Components, and I'm going to make sure my .NET framework is set to 3.5 so that this will run on our on Unity. So let's go ahead and create that. Let's go ahead and delete this class. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move API v1 and components. Actually, I'm going to move systems directly in there and then API directly in there, and then I'm going to delete them from API v1 and from components. So remove that. Also, remove the generated project. We will be generating that in BuzzMMO.Base components. And then I'm going to take all of infrastructure, and I'm going to take all of these classes and move them up directly into BuzzMMO.Base. That cleans up our hierarchy a little bit. So next up, in my BuzzMMO.Base, I'm going to unload that. And I'm going to also unload BuzzMMO.Base.Components. So unload that. And I'm going to edit both of their CS projects. And then in BuzzMMO.Base, I'm going to grab his before build, and I'm just going to cut this out of here and paste it at the bottom. So remember, the before build is responsible for the generating the components. And then I might need to tweak the paths a little bit. So if the BuzzMMO.Tools exists, then execute the tools and then generate component interfaces all the way into MS-build file this directory components. I'm just going to do a direct MS-build this file directory. And then for our path, I'm going to leave generated component interface .g.cs. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll reload our projects. Now for this, I'm going to create a generated folder. And then I'm going to do something interesting here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to open up in my file explorer. And I want this folder to get committed to source control, but I don't want to put anything in it. So I'm going to right click, select new file, and well, actually that won't work. I'm going to right click here and select add new item. And I'm going to select code file once my templates get initialized here. Let's go ahead and jump down here to code file. And then I'm going to add a git keep file. And I will go ahead and take this git keep file and say exclude from project. So the git keep, well, Yes, that's what I want to do. So the git keep file is just a standard file. It doesn't do anything special, but it is a file. So as a result, git, even if we ignore certain files within this folder, if we add this git keep to our repository, we can keep this folder getting added into source control without adding in the generated code. So I'll go ahead and do that commit right here before I edit our git ignore. So I'm going to commit all this stuff, and I'm going to say move stuff around, and I'll go ahead and commit that. So now that that file is added to source control, I can go ahead and make sure that our generated, whoops, that says generator. That should say generated, not generator. So let's go ahead and save that out, and then I'm going to recommit on this. Fix something. Okay, so then I'm going to jump into our git ignore and make sure that that folder is ignored, so no additional files will get added to it. So I'll open up my git ignore, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to git ignore source BuzzMMO dot, what's he called? Source BuzzMMO.Base dot components generated. So now that that folder is ignored, our generated code won't get added to our source control. Okay, so even though the folder still will be. So anyway, so now that we have that moved over, I'm going to go on BuzzMMO.Base components. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say build dependencies, and I'm going to select project dependencies, and I'm going then to select BuzzMMO.Tools. And what this will result in is this being built after BuzzMMO.Tools, which is what we want. We want the tools to be built first, and then we want the things that depend on the tools to be built after that. And that's what that does without adding a project reference. See, there's no project reference, but there is a little bit flipped inside the CS proj that says, hey, I want you to only run after this has been built. Okay, so that's going to break a lot of stuff. So let's hit Control-Shift-B and see exactly what got broke. We got 75 errors. Okay, so our client systems does not work because... Wait a second, is that really the only error in the file? Where do we use our client systems? I don't think we use them anywhere. Why should that be a problem? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why I need that using statement. That's just an extraneous using statement, so I'm just going to remove it every time it complains. For here, now every time we reference our component systems, I have to go ahead and add that project reference. That's really easy with ReSharper. I can just hit Alt-Enter on here and say reference BuzzMMO.Base.components. And that'll work. It should work. So now in our Buzz server master, again, Alt-Enter, and then reference BuzzMMO-based components and use ilogin system. Now I haven't changed the namespaces yet, which is important. So all I have to do is import the using statement. I don't think ReSharper is getting the memo here. No, it's not. So apparently ReSharper's broke, so I'll have to add the reference manually. I'll just add a reference, and then add in projects, and then buzz-based components. Add that, and now all of this stuff should start working. Again, just like it was before, so that's really cool. Also for our API, we have to do the same thing. So our launcher, let's just go through these. Client needs to reference BuzzMMO-based components. Client console needs to reference BuzzMMO-based components. Client Unity also does. If we don't add this to Client Unity, the Unity project won't have access to these. Data, I don't think it does. Launcher does because it needs to reference the API. Server does. And server region does. Server or tests do as well, of course. And so does web, because web needs the API stuff. All right, let's go ahead and do another build and see what errors we get. All right, API doesn't exist in BuzzMMO web controllers API. Yes, it does. Shut up. Okay, so infrastructure does not exist in BuzzMMO base. Are you missing a assembly reference? So it looks like on my BuzzMMO.Base components, I have to reference BuzzMMO.Base. And now that works. Build still failed. So, no, it didn't. Your errors are just out of date. I'm going to go ahead and now, since I've done such drastic changes, I'm going to do a complete clean and a complete rebuild. So I'll give that a second. We get metadata, BuzzMMO.Base not found. This is interesting. So the command, okay, the command failed. The generate command failed. So what I'm going to do here to debug this is I'm going to go ahead and find where that command is. And then I am going to take its completely generated output here and Control-C, copy that. And then I'm going to go up to build BuzzMMO.Tools, and I'm going to go down to properties, and I'm going to go on command line arguments. I'm just going to paste the command line arguments in there. Well, no, I'll just edit this. So this should be BuzzMMO.Base.components without this forward components, and then generated in component interface is fine. So then I'm going to hit F5 and see what the error is that we're getting. It seems that we do not get an error, so that was exciting. It's always scary when you don't get an error when you expect it to. So, let's see here. So, again, the problem is BuzzMMO.Base is not compiling, because the command, let's just check this command real fast. BuzzMMO.Tools exe generates component interfaces, passing in the path for BuzzMMO.Base.components / and then component interface, generated component interface. Well, you know what? That really should be working. Component interface. I wonder if it wants quotes. It didn't want quotes before. I don't know. Let's find out what's going on down here. So if that exists, go ahead and do the thingy. And once you do the thingy, what are you going to tell the thingy? You are going to component interface, msbuild this file directory, which msbuild this file directory is the current directory here. Oh, I know what it is. Add a space. Spaces always fix things. Well, not always. Add a space to that quote. I didn't catch it, but I'm fairly certain that was caused by... Do we have a build? And we have a build. That was caused by that double quote escaping or being escaped by the / from the path. So make sure you add a space there to fix that problem. Alrighty. So that's all working just fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and ignore some other files, since we're on the topic of ignoring things. So let's go ahead and jump down to BuzzMMO.server. He doesn't have anything to compile, so that's fine. Tests does. He has it generated. I want this file ignored and deleted so that it gets regenerated on compilation on our build server. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to delete this file. And I'm sure there's a better way to do this in Git, but right now I think that this is just going to be the easiest way to go about doing this. So I'm going to delete that file, and then I'm going to do a commit. So I'm going to do a commit, and that is going to be... Why do we have a bunch of these DLLs? Oh, that's fine. Fixed references. I'm going to do that here, and also in my my uploads folder. I'm going to go ahead and delete everything in my uploads folder. I can't remember if uploads folder is added to source control yet. And then I'm going to add a git ignore to my uploads folder, because I want to make sure the uploads folder gets created when we do a package, but I don't want anything inside of the uploads folder existing when we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new code file called git keep in our uploads, and then I'll go ahead and exclude from project, and then I'll temporarily remove that from the git ignore. This is a really nasty way to do it, but it works, so I'm going to do it like this. So we'll remove uploads from our git ignore, and then we will add that git keep into it so that we can commit the git keep. And then we're just going to delete component interfaces. This is the next thing to do. And I'm also going to go ahead and delete everything out of my assemblies folder on the client and add a git ignore to that too. So I'm going to, or git keeps that too. I'm going to grab this git keep, I'm going to control C that, and I'm going to jump back into Unity client assets assemblies. I'm going to delete everything in here and replace it with a git keep because I want to ignore this folder too. So coming back here, we have a bunch of git keep files that we're going to add, and we have a bunch of nasty things we're going to delete. So we're going to say, oops, not staged, removed or fixed references, added git keeps. And I'll go ahead and commit that. And after I commit that, let's go and ignore these folders that I want ignored. So I'm going to paste back in, or I'm going to add in source BuzzMMO.web uploads. And then I'm going to add in source BuzzMMO.tests generated. So these files will now be always ignored. Well, actually, I won't do test generated yet because I want to add a git keep to that. So I'm going to grab this git keep, I'm going to hit Control C, I'm going to jump back into BuzzMMO, do source, and then do BuzzMMO tests, and then go to generated, which no longer exists, it seems. Or am I just, do I just have the dumb? No, it no longer exists. Let's go ahead and create that folder, generated, and paste in git keep. Come in here and remove this extraneous file completely, because that file is being referenced by the project, but it no longer exists on the file system. Now I'm going to go ahead and commit this. So again, this is just all cleanup of these temporary and generated folders that really should have been done in the first place. And now I'll add it to git ignore. So I'll say BuzzMMO.tests generated. Okay, so hit F6, make sure we still get a build, and then let's go ahead and test it real fast. So I'm going to jump over to resharper unit test, and I'm going to say run all tests from solution. And we get some errors. So let's go ahead and fix these. Our base works just fine. Our system tests, however, are having some problems. And it seems that it says the given key was not present in the dictionary. So that happened on this, so it wasn't able to find the factory. And it probably wasn't able to find the factory because I did get assemblies. So let's go ahead and debug this. Let's make sure that our because tests does reference our BuzzMMO.Base components, and so it should pick up these systems right here. Or, oh wait, I do have to, yeah, okay. I'm being stupid. You do have to add the component interface GCS to the project. So right click and add to project. If you don't add to the project, it won't be compiled. I've been working in JavaScript for so long lately that I completely forgot that you have to add it to the CS proj. However, it's not added to the repository, meaning when you take this project and you send it to a continuous integration server, that file is not going to exist. That generated file is not going to exist, which is why it needs to be regenerated before it's built. Okay, now let's run our tests again, now that those files are included. And we get success all across the board. Alrighty. So next up, I want to go ahead and get rid of this debug Nelson thing. So while I've been working on this, my own R&D, when I started wanting to have multiple region servers being built, I started running into issues with the fact that I have this debug Nelson in here and things are super hard coded. So as you recall, the reason I have debug Nelson in there is because my master server, for example, if I look at its properties, has a build or has a, not a build event, but a directory, a build directory right into my Photon folder, and I don't want that. I don't want that anymore. I would rather that be in a separate configuration file. So we're going to separate this out. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to completely nuke that configuration. So I'm going to come up here to my configuration manager, and I'm just going to hit edit, and I'm going to delete debug Nelson. Then I'm going to go ahead into all of the ones that have debug Nelson in them. Let's move over back to debug. I don't want to be in release mode right now. Such as the server, and server doesn't have it. Server master does. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And server region, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So that there is no more server or debug Nelson. So make sure that that gets all removed. This one might have it because I created this project afterwards. No, it doesn't. Okay, so now how do we... Well, what are these errors? What are you yelling at me about? BuzzMMO client console. Really? ReSharper's cache is probably just broken. Whatever, don't really care. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a local build settings file. And that's going to be inside of my build folder. Well, it's the build folder is not really a folder, but I'll organize it up there. So I'm going to create a new, whoops, not a new project. I'm going to create a new item. And the new item is just going to be a text file, doesn't really matter at this point. And then I'm going to call this local build settings. Or I could call this BuzzMMO.Build.Local.Proj. And inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this project tools var, because it will be an MS build project. And now that I have that there, I'll close this out and open it back in so Visual Studio kind of gets its act together and gives me IntelliSense. So what am I going to put in here? Well, I'm simply going to put in a property group. Inside of this property group, I'm going to put a debug Photon deploy location. And I'm going to set this to where I have Photon installed. So the Photon that I'm using right now is located right here. So let's go ahead and open that up. So that's this guy right here. And then it's going to be under deploy, and it's BuzzMMO. Or wait a sec, are we still deploying to that one? I forget. No, we're deploying to 422. So let's hop back here and hop over to Photon 3.422. And we're deploying to the deploy folder. So we have our server master, and our server region. I'll just delete these. Well, it doesn't really matter. Is there anything important here? No, these are just builds that I don't really care about. I'll just move all of these away. I can't remember if I even still reference these. Do I still reference these? I don't think so. Photon server.config. What do I do here? Currently, I'm referencing BuzzMMO master and BuzzMMO region. So I'm just going to take all these. I'm just going to take them and dump them into a temp folder, whatever. I'm going to redo the directory structure here a little bit. So, why is it currently being open? Let's go ahead and close out of Visual Studio. I think Visual Studio might have a lock on that folder. It did. It's an odd thing to have a lock on. Not sure why that happened, but, yeah. Anyway, so back to the deploy folder. I'm going to go ahead and set, I'm going to create a new folder called BuzzMMO, where our master server and our 2 game servers are going to live. And yes, I said 2 game servers. We're now going to be deploying 2 of them. This is how we're going to be handling our load balancing. We're going to have 2 instances of the game server, both in development and in production. I'm not going to worry about making their configuration super flexible right now. I'm just going to hard code it, and in the future we can make it a little bit more fancy. But right now, I just really want to get all these little random changes done so we can start moving forward. All right, debug Photon deploy location. I'm just going to paste in that folder I created. So now we have a path. Now, I will go ahead and preemptively git ignore this. So be sure to hop over into your git ignore and ignore that. So I'm going to set that to source BuzzMMO.Build.Local.Proj. So then I'm also going to jump back into source. So this is our BuzzMMO build local proj. I'm going to copy and paste it and commit a local.proj.template. The .template, it means that when you go and check, will be on source control, and when you go and check it out, you will copy and paste this template and set your own local build settings to this. So that's how we're going to be handling that. Okay, so where are we going to use this? Well, the answer is we're going to use this in our server and server and region. In our debug configuration, what we're going to do is we're going to xcopy over into those folders, but we also need to xcopy over some configuration data. So particularly for the region server. So the master server and will just have a basic config file. but that'll use a config transform between development and production. But our region server is going to have multiple config files. It'll have a total of 4. We'll have our first game server development, first game server production, and second game server development, second game version production. So for example, in our region folder, I'll go ahead and start off and create the base config. So I'll add a new item, and it'll just be a simple JavaScript file, or JSON file rather. And we'll just call this config.json. And config.json will have some basic properties attached into it. Let's just do test property is value 1, and then we'll do override property to override. And then inside of our region folder project, we'll have a folder called config. Inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and paste in config and change it to game1.debug.json. And game1.debug.json will just have an override property of game1.debug. We'll copy and paste that and do game1 production.json. And we'll set this to game1 production. I'm just doing this for test purposes. And then we'll have a game1 or a game2.debug.json, which will be game2. And then we'll have a game2.production.json. I don't know where the word projection came from, but I'm going to keep it. So this will be game2 projection. This will be game2 debug. Doesn't really matter. The point is what I want to have happen is I want this region server to be deployed to 2 different locations. One location being the first game server, and the second location being the second game server, and I want the appropriate .json configuration files to be merged into this config.json. So if you recall, in our tools, we currently, or in our build tasks, we have this render Unity client configuration file. And all he does is he gets a base, and then he merges it with another JSON file, and then he sets it to config.txt. I'm going to create another task in here, but that'll be for rendering our other items. So, or other config files. So I'm going to create a new task called render configuration. And render configuration is going to have a public string transform file property with a public getter and public setter. We'll have a public string base file, get set, and we'll have a public string destination file, get set. So the base file is the base configuration that needs to be overridden. The transform file is the JSON file that we want to merge with, and then the destination file is where we want to dump it out. And of course, this guy is going to inherit task. So by inheriting task, we need to implement the execute method. So for here, I'm going to say if not file.exists, implement or import system file, transform file, then I'm going to say log error, cannot find transform file, and we'll return false. If not file exists base file, then log error, cannot find base file, base, whoops, I meant to do money here, not at, base file, and then we'll return false. And then I'm going to say if not directory.exists path get directory name for destination file, log error, cannot find destination folder for file, destination file. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and say try. Well, actually, I'm going to put a try above this, in case something bad goes wrong there. And, of course, return false on this. And then I'm going to say try. I'll say var store equals new configuration store. If you recall, this is the thing that we use to merge JSON files with, so be sure to add your using statement for infrastructure at the top. And then I'm going to say store.merge JSON object file read all text, and then passing in base file, and then store merge JSON object file read all text, and then pass in our transform file. Then file.write all text, and pass in the destination file followed by config dot or store dot to JSON object string, and then say log message with a message importance. Come on, you can do it. Hi, and it's going to say rendered transform file plus, or sorry, start with the base file plus transform file equals, and then do destination file. Then I'm going to return true. Otherwise, we'll catch the exception and say, we'll catch E, or exception, well, no, we'll just throw it over again. And then I'm going to say log error, and pass in cannot render base file plus transform file equals destination, or to destination file, and then rethrow that exception. All right, pretty straightforward build task. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and write our debug deployment code. So I'm going to exit full screen, and I'll start off with server master, which will be pretty easy. So let's go ahead and unload this guy, and then edit him directly. And what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and then after all of this stuff, after we bring in the slow cheater, or before we do whatever, I'm going to say property group, pass in a condition of, now the punctuation here is important, configuration, the variable, equals debug. So if we're in debug, then I'm going to say post build event, and I'm going to say xcopy, pass in project dir /bin /configuration name, and then space, I'm going to pass in debug Photon deploy location, which I hope was the thing I called this guy. Debug Photon deploy location. And then I'm going to pass BuzzMMO master, or master, not base, bin, and then I'm going to provide capital E and capital Y as switches. And above this, I am going to go ahead and import our local build settings. So I'm going to say import. So this is how you import an external project. I'm going to import our ms build project directory // local, or BuzzMMO build local.proj. All right, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this code because we're going to use this, or copy it because we're going to use it in the region. But I do want to test out our master first. So I'm going to close out of that, open up master, and hit build. And hopefully we won't get any errors. We do. Does not exist in BuzzMMO.Base. So login system is in BuzzMMO client console systems. BuzzMMO client console. Do you reference components? You do. So why are you complaining? Did components not build? No, components built. Did client not build? No, client built. Nope, this built. That built. That built. That built. And that built. I don't know, something weird just went on with our builds, but it seems to be fixed now. Okay, so if I come over here, notice that our project does not exist. So let's take a look at our output window, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like there's going to be any way for me to get that output. Am I in the right Photon? I am in the right Photon. I do not see our BuzzMMO server. So let's go ahead and open up our server. Let's unload the project. Oh, this stuff is never fun, guys. I apologize. Oh, we don't want server. We wanted server master. Derp to derp. All right, let's build you. and build failed. It's really bizarre that when I build the server, I get an error about... Oh, no. Here we go. The command copy bin eSoftware Photon 22 deploy master bin exit with code 4. Let's come on here to our BuzzMMO folder and create a master and then a bin folder. Maybe xcopy doesn't like that the target directory didn't exist. So let's build that again. And we still get that error. Master bin. Let's open up our output window. I'm going to take this folder. I'm going to copy and paste it into a file explorer. It doesn't exist. It looks like we have a problem here. Oh, we have 2 BuzzMMOs. Ah! I know, I'm the worst. That's because we just want to, because we assume that the debug Photon deploy location already has that BuzzMMO in it. That's why that didn't work. So let's go ahead and take that extraneous BuzzMMO out, come back here and hit build, and we still get a failure. But let's go ahead and debug this further. So I'm going to take this path, I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and I'm going to try to navigate to it to make sure it exists. And it does exist. So it looks like the input path is what's messing up here. The / bin isn't what I expected. So let's come down here and figure out why that is. Project dir bin configuration name. Seems that configuration name isn't even working either, which is weird. Was that misspelled? No, it wasn't. Wait a sec. I want to do just configuration here. Pretty sure anyway. Let's see what else could be wrong. We could do msbuild this file directory if we wanted to. Or output path. We could just grab output path. That'll work. So replace that whole thing with the output path variable. Reload project. Probably should have done that from the beginning. Hit build. And it still doesn't like it. Xcopy bin debug to... Oh! I think it could be that slash again. That slash is really messing with me. Let's go ahead and jump back in here. Why... Oops, not reload project. Why does Windows use backslashes instead of /? /s just look better and you don't have problems like this. I don't understand. Okay, add a space there. Reload project. Build again for the 10th time. And it doesn't seem like it was that. So E and Y are the flags that we want. Let's go ahead and just try to execute this command directly from our... let's just go ahead and I'm going to right-click BuzzMMO Server Master and open in a file explorer. And I'm going to open up a command window in there. And I'm just going to paste in this. File.found 0. So why does it do that? Bin is right there. Debug's right there. And there's our project. So I am being stupid somewhere, is the issue. Okay, it really doesn't like that slash. Then it worked when I didn't have that extra slash in there. So this could be problematic. So I wonder if we can do bin debug. I wonder if we could just put that in directly. So I'm going to go back to master, and I'm going to unload project, edit this build script. I really don't like build scripts. I'm so done with build scripts. Why can't we do this in like JavaScript or something? And I'm just going to say bin / configuration. Configuration being the variable there. And we'll build this. And it doesn't want to run. Bin debug doesn't want to work. Probably because we're not in the right path. So I always forget which path these things execute under. BuzzMMO Server Master. Let's use that msbuild this project, this file directory, which msbuild this file directory. So I'm going to do msbuild this file directory /bin /configuration. And I'm fairly certain that this is going to work. I know I said that a million times already. I know you guys are getting really, really bored of this, but it works. Awesome. So now we have a proper build of our server. So now let's do our region server build. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to re-unload this server master, edit that. Then I'm going to unload server region, edit that. And then I'm going to split screen this and scroll down to the bottom here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, all of this stuff, to where this was before. So we have msbuild this file directory. So all of this will work, except for I'm going to change this to game 1. And then I'm going to copy and paste this onto a new line and change it to game 2. So now we have the same thing, except for we're deploying it twice, once to game 1 and once to game 2. Then, let's see. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say using task, and I'm going to import my render config. So I'm going to say using task name is going to be BuzzMMO.Build.Tasks.Render configuration. And the assembly file is simply going to be msbuild this file directory. So we're rooted on an absolute path here. So msbuild this file directory. And then I'm going to do // and go into BuzzMMO.Build.Tasks bin configuration name, or just configuration, / BuzzMMO build tasks.dll. So make sure you go ahead and import this, this task here. And then I'm going to say target name equals after builds. This is an optional target, and I'm going to give it a condition of, you guessed it, configuration, and this has to be in quotes, equals debug. And then I'm going to say, inside of here, I'm going to say render configuration, and I'm going to pass in those 3 parameters. So the first parameter here is going to be base file equals, and then msbuild this file directory. So the base file is going to be msbuild this file directory config.json. And then our transform file is going to be msbuild this file directory config game1 debug.json. And then our destination file is going to be basically this, or in this case, game1.bin. So we want to dump the result into game1.bin. Then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this, and the only change I'm going to do is change this transform file to game2 and change the destination to game2. And that's it. So now our configuration will be rendered out into our game 1 and game 2. Let's go ahead and create those folders real fast. I'm in Photon again. I'm going to create game1.bin, and then I'm going to create game2. Oops. Bin. Then I'm going to come back here, exit full screen, and then I'm going to reload region. And we don't need master anymore to be unloaded, so we'll reload that, and we'll do a build. And we'll probably get an error because I'm sure I spoke too soon. If we open up game1 bin, we have all of the files added. Then we should have a config.json file. And we don't. So I did mess up, just not bad enough to get an error. Oh, destination file. So it's going to be game2 config.json. If you recall, this is the file name that we want it to be, not the folder name we want it to go in. So let's go ahead and reload this. And then build it again. And then come back here, and we should have, so we have config. Let's just go ahead and delete this whole thing, and then do a rebuild on that. Okay, we're still getting that weird folder and not a file. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up my build tasks, render configuration, see what's going on here. So we have Vital Text destination file. which is indeed the file, the path to the file. And if we look at our output, we should see oh, we're not seeing where it gets rendered. So something's fishy about this. Let's go ahead and open up our configuration manager, make sure we're on a debug build for everything, and we are. Let's go into the region and unload it one more time and take a quick look at it. So we do have after build. It is named correctly. Our configuration is, if we're on debug, I spelled this correctly. I'll just take this condition and copy and paste it to make sure that's all right, and it is. And then we have our render configuration. Make sure we don't have any other after build defined, and we do not have any other after build defined. You might have to define this actually underneath our MS Tools path Microsoft C# targets. I'm not sure about that, but let's just do some science, I guess. So let's go into server region, and let's go ahead and do a rebuild on that. And we have a config.json. So I did have to add that, that task underneath that other import. So that's fine. We have this config.json, and this one should be overridden for game 1. And it is overridden for game 1, but we still get the test property from earlier. And then game 2 should have a configuration which is overridden with game 2 debug. And that is awesome. So yeah, that is our build right there. I do want to go ahead and make a point. Now that our server master and our server region are using build tasks, I will go into server master and go ahead and right click and select build dependencies, project dependencies, and I will select build tasks. So that's built before that. And I'll do the same thing on region, so that these so that if we ever change our build tasks, they will be compiled before everything else. And if we check out our build order, this looks about right. Base, tools, data, components, server, tasks, then client, master region, client Unity, launcher web tests, and then console, which looks like a perfectly fine build order to me. So the last thing, before I forget, I do want to go ahead and in my git ignore, I do want to ignore my client's assembly. So it'll be source, or rather, Unity client assets assemblies. And that way, now none of those built assemblies will appear. And I guess the last order of business, if you have ReSharper installed, click on your solution, hit Control-Shift-R, hit Adjust Namespaces, and fix all these namespaces. Since we moved around a bunch of files, we got to make sure that our namespaces are up to date. And then come back here. We should have 10.5 million changed files, but that's fine. Go ahead and commit, and the commit message is just going to be something along the lines of fixed debug build fixed name moved namespaces. And I just did a commit and push. All right, we do need to fix our Photon configuration, of course. So let's hop over and do that. We changed the, well, at least I changed the paths for mine. You don't have to do the paths that I do. You don't even have to do the same deployment scheme that I do. I'm just showing you guys an example of one that works. Yeah, you do notice that it's really not the most glamorous or fun thing to be working on, but it is really important. So I'm going to change BuzzMMO master. I'm going to change its base directory to BuzzMMO master, which matches BuzzMMO master. And then I'm going to, for the region, I'm going to call this BuzzMMO game 1. And I'm going to set its assembly is still going to be region, but its base directory is going to be BuzzMMO game 1. And then I'm going to copy and paste this and do BuzzMMO game 2, which will point to game 2. And that will load both of those games in. So now we have 2 Photon applications running. Okay, and that's it. I I think the next cleanup video is going to be the last one. There's only a handful of things left to do. All we have to do at this point is add in some logging and then get our configuration working for our deployments. So we do have to come in here to our BuzzMMO build.proj, and for our production build, we'll have to modify this just a little bit so that we're deploying 2 versions of the game server to the production system. But anyway, guys, I guess I will see you guys in the next video.